If you're anything like me, you're training on a budget. That's why instead of fancy nylon trainers or expensive steel, I like to use a wooden single stick. This plain piece of wood and a rigid basket has been used for centuries to practice broadsword and saber techniques. And today, I'm going to show you how I make my own. For my wood today, I am going to be using a rattan single stick blade from Purple Heart Armory. Traditionally, you should use ash wood instead, but I like to go with rattan because if you break rattan, it doesn't splinter, it shreds. And it's also got a lot of bounce to it. So these are going to hurt a lot less to get hit with than hard ash or hickory. So this single stick is 36 inches long and it's got 3/4 of an inch diameter. That is just about the perfect diameter to me, because if you go thicker than that, it's going to make your blade a lot more rigid, it's going to get heavier, and it's going to hit harder. You're going to risk injuring your opponent. Whereas if you go thinner than that, it's harder to get a good grip on it, and it's also going to be more fragile. The 3/4 of an inch to an inch seems to be just the perfect sweet spot for what you want in a blade. And the last important part of the wooden construction is this little nub here at the bottom. That is what our handguard is going to rest against. So with the wood out of the way, let me show you how to turn a floppy piece of leather into a rigid handguard that is going to protect your hands. So in order to turn this flimsy piece of leather into this hard protective piece of leather, I've got some water that is just about boiling temperature, a glass bowl that I am going to mold my leather guard, and a cooking tray. So once the water gets up to not quite a boil, but close, I am going to soak the leather all in it. I want to get just about every piece. The leather is definitely going to start to bunch up in places, and that's going to be okay. So once the leather is all soaked and wet, I am going to mold it on this glass. All the edges sort of roll in. It's kind of hard to get everything perfect, but it also doesn't need to be entirely perfect. So I've got soaked leather. It's in roughly a usable mold, and I am going to set my oven to its lowest temperature. And once it's there, I will pop it in and I will leave it for a couple of minutes for it to dry out. Now that drying is going to cause the leather to harden. I don't know exactly how that works. I'm just copying YouTube videos that told me how to do it. Now that my handguard is hardened and dried, I am going to cut it into shape. I'd always say harden it first before you cut it into shape, because the edges of the leather will roll, the whole thing will shrink. So you want to have more than you require before you actually start trying to harden it, or else you'll end up with too small of a handguard. All right, I just cut out all the cutting. This is roughly 5.5 inches wide, and it's got enough hand space that I could fit a bit more than my whole hand in here. That's going to give me enough protection that just by wearing gloves, I'm going to be able to take some pretty hard hits to my hand, and my hand will be all right. Next up, I will drill a hole in the top and bottom of this handguard. And when I drill the hole, I'll make it just a bit smaller than the single stick itself, so that as I force it down onto the single stick, it will create a tight grip. I will edit out a bunch of that stuff too. So I used a cordless drill to drill 2 holes in my single stick for the actual blade of the stick to go through. Something I almost forgot to mention, this type of leather is veg tan leather. You apparently can't harden most other kinds of leather. I don't know why that is. It's just some odd reason. I don't understand a lot of crafting reasons. It's just something that never really came naturally to me, which is why I gravitate to such a easy crafting project as this. So once my single stick is snugly against this piece of wood right here, everything is complete. Now my hand will be as safe as if I were wearing a steel basket hilt over it. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this. And happy fencing.